Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Soul Music, the songs that saved us, the music that healed, etc. Obviously, this is our fourth full episode. It's not the fourth episode overall. We do have lots of little mini-sodes, as Izzy, like to call them. Check them out. They're on the audio feed, and also you can see the visual versions on our Instagram and our YouTube. I'm making a fool of myself and being weird as usual in them, so they might raise a giggle. Links are below in the episode description. So in this next full episode, we do take a little bit of a turn from previous vibes. We go a little bit deep, we get a little bit serious. We actually delve into the world of spirituality a little bit, and that's fine because life is a rich tapestry. We're talking with a wonderful man by the name of Mitch Hall, based out in California, who is vastly experienced in the world of wellness and healing, and also music for healing. He's a walking encyclopedia, and not only that, he is a funny and lovely walking encyclopedia at that. So I'll let Mitch introduce himself as he does at the beginning of the podcast. We talk about everything from his life in Africa, where music was a huge part of the community, to how music can actually affect plants to the point where they live or die, which sent me on a bit of a spiral about my poor cheese plant in the noughties when I was playing all that emo music. So we hope you enjoy. We hope you continue to tune in. If you'd like to be involved, you can send us your stories and your experiences for us to narrate for you on the podcast, or you can guest yourself. Just drop us an email at the email address that is in the episode description box below. And until next time, au revoir. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from... Are you in Oakland, California?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not stalking you, honestly. I just did my research like a good journalist. I'm really grateful for you.
I went, what? How do you know that?
I'm just a good researcher. I'm not, there's nothing insidious going on here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon to jump on this meeting and talk to myself and Becky. I've read a little bit about your background, and I can see you've got such a wealth of experience and such an interesting background, really qualified and seemingly respected in your profession as well in terms of what you do. But I would just love it if you could briefly give us an overview of who you are, what you do, why you do it. Is that okay? I know I'm putting you slightly on the spot there.
Slightly.
Feel free to say, put the hand up and go, no, it's fine.
No, it's fine. Well, briefly, first of all, I'm 82 years. So if I've done a few things, I've had a few years to do it in. A few being euphemism, but yeah. So currently, I'm living in Oakland, California, and that's been one of many places I've dwelt. I am still active teaching online, right now online, since March of 2020, when the world was turned upside down, inside out, and backwards. I've been teaching online classes involving yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, meditation, breath work, and occasionally a bit of music or a bit of chanting, a bit of sound practices as well. And there are healing sound practices that I sometimes engage students with, which ties in with your podcast theme.
Yeah.
Most of my career was in teaching, at most of it at universities. And I also do a bit of wellness counseling. I give people, it's like coaching, support, and with a strong spiritual component, which word would need a lot of definition, but we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
I'm a published writer and an editor. I edited 2 books in the past year, and I have writing projects. But right now, because I'm not, writing takes so much daily discipline that, am I kidding myself? I don't have forever. None of us does.
Everyone has their own different writing styles, but I'm a deadline writer. I am the neurodiverse deadline writer. So that's how I produce all my university essays, all my journalistic work at the deadline, but everyone's different, obviously, and not one thing works for everyone. So I understand, obviously, any challenges when it comes to sort of bringing that output to the fore and getting it onto your laptop. I'd like to, we all go, it's we can tell you some stories about how much I panicked before we brought this podcast into existence. But I would like to ask you, really, in terms of, I want to focus more on, obviously, your interest in sound and in healing music. What led you to that? Was it purely your studies in terms of alternative practices like Ayurveda and yogic and stuff like that? Or were you a big music fan and you've just sort of been able to bring it into your world? Obviously, the way sound is used in wellness, etc.
Very good questions. And I have not even asked myself entirely about this. I was responsive to music and sound very early in life. Okay. I loved to dance, all kinds of styles, African dance, freestyle dance, whatever. Speaking of African dance, for 2 years of my life, I was a Peace Corps volunteer teacher in the north of Togo. Wow. Many people never even heard of Togo, and this was from 1965 to 67. And as I was thinking about our upcoming interview, I started remembering how integrated into daily life and chores music was in the lives of the people who were not yet westernized. I became, in my second year there, I got to know a family from the Fulani indigenous group who are known as the cattle herders all over the Sahel region of Western Africa. And the Fulanis I knew were semi-sedentarized. They were really took care of cattle and horses and other animals, but they were also farming. And so I would visit them on when I wasn't teaching in school on the weekends, and they lived in mud huts that they could put up a mud hut with a thatched roof in a day. And once I was out there when it was time for them to till the fields, and they had these short-handled, big-bladed hoes. And then there was a boy among them from the family, and he had this, I don't even know what you call the music. It's like a two-tone gong, and he had a striker, and he was doing a rhythm on the gong, and the big men were crouched over because there's a short-handled hose that had been way down, and they're walking backwards as they were tilling the earth with these hoes, these big, guys with the strong backs. I said, I want to help. I was a young guy in my early 20s. I thought, I can do this. I maybe lasted 5 or at best 10 minutes. And they laughed and said, this is not for you. But it was the rhythm of the boy on these getting a nice rhythm with the gong. And they took these little short steps, crouched over with their hose, moving backwards, and lifting up large amounts of earth. So the women would grind sometimes the grain would be ground. The millet was their main grain with a big rock grinding stone and a rock grinder. And then the rhythm, the grinding going back and forth would make a sound, like a musical sound. And one woman, I was there, was one of my students who could interpret for me. We spoke French together, and she started improvising a song. And my student laughed. He would go, and it was about complaining about her husband and how lazy he was, and why the women had to do more work and everything. And it was just part of, it was part of work. And then they had these big, carved out like tree trunk as a mortar, and they had these big sticks for pestles, and 2, 3, sometimes 4 women would be all around this round mortar with their pounding sticks, with the pestles, and then they would get a rhythm going, and sometimes they throw it in the air, they clap twice, catch it, and then it was very musical. And then once I went down to the coast, and there was many fishermen with this huge drift net. It was a big net, and there were like 2 rows of fishermen on either side of it, and they were big burly men, and maybe 10 or 20 on each side pulling in the rope. And again, there was a kid, like a teenager with this gong, and then they were singing as they pulled in their catch from the sea. So this was part of the, plus all the drumming and the Fulanis would take their little reed flutes out into the fields when they were with their cattle, and they'd play. So music was not something that you turn on the radio for. And
no, it was part of everyday life for them.
So this was so integrated. I loved it, So anyhow, and among some of these groups, I mean, there are some musician casts in some of the groups in like the Senegambia region of Africa. They have the griot, the professional musicians, but mostly, people were a farmer or a fisherman or whatever, and they would play the different and sing, and everybody got into the community dances, all ages, young and old, and they would act out fantasies. It was just great. So it was like a big eye opener to me. So number one. Number two, as I said, I'd love to dance, as a kid, a teenager, and on. And then number two is I started getting into yoga practice when I was maybe about 28. And and then there was the chanting, and like that really intrigued me. And because I would just feel it in my body. I didn't know much about it. And so and then many years later, I was actually in a summer doing organic gardening at a yoga retreat center. It was a kind of a career transition period in my life. And a Jain monk named Acharya Sushil Kumar, who was apparently very famous among the Jain population in India, which is a small one. He didn't have his own ashram in the US yet. And he was actually the head of a whole monastic order. And Arham Yoga was his creation, I think, but it was basically, he practiced a yoga of sound, and he had his summer camp at the yoga retreat center where I was staying in the Catskill Mountains in New York State. It was called the Shivananda Yoga Ranch. And so his chanting was amazing. And one evening, the first Friday evening when he was there was a group of people listening to him, and they did some chanting, and then he asked people to lie down in the middle if they wanted an experience. He would just lightly touch them on the head, and people started describing seeing gardens, hearing birds, hearing flutes. I mean, and I thought, who is this dude in the white? I'm not going to lie down there and everything. So I was a little, wary, so at any rate, the next evening there was a community celebration where there's a big Jain expatriate community in the greater New York City area, New Jersey, New York City, Pennsylvania, around there, and they had a big gathering at the yoga ranch, I think it was. No, maybe this was already at his own ashram. It was anyhow at one point. I'm getting the place confused. I'll get there. It was at an ashram. There was a big meditation hall, and the monks were on a little slight raised platform chanting, and everyone was chanting, but people were standing and people were dancing, and we were all dancing, and so then all of a sudden, and I just joined in, and I felt good. Do the dance. Pick it up. This will sound totally bizarre to you, but it's a direct in relation to your question. I'm just going to admit it. I'm letting it go out there. Once, some years before that, I don't know how many, maybe within the 10-year period, I was the international student advisor at Stanford University. And it was after lunch. I was in my office. I was a little drowsy, like maybe I rested my arms on the desk just for a couple minutes, and then it was like I got a message. I mean, it was just it was inside me. It was just like it was in my mind. It was very clear, very simple, very pure. It just said, "You do not come here to teach, but to learn to fill the body with living music."
Wow.
So I said, "Whoa, what does that mean? I don't know." But I accepted. Well, what does it mean to fill the body with living music? So I did a lot of reading about healing with sound and everything. And then I'm going to go tie this back into the Jain monk had a practice of using the Maha Mantra, the great mantra of the Jain tradition. It's called the Namokar mantra. And mantra, by the way, man, the first syllable man refers to manas, which is one of the names for mind, or one level of mind from Sanskrit. Tra, T-R-A, comes from the word that means to protect or protection. So mantra specifically means to protect, they're for protecting the mind. The inner dimensions, and including up to the spiritual level. So anyhow, while I learned a bunch of these chants, and I loved doing them. I felt good. There was like implicit knowledge. I didn't have to have any theory about what's it doing to my nervous system or to my neurotransmitters or to my vagus nerve. Traveling up from the ashram, which was in this was at the Jain ashram where I'd done a lot of chanting, and I edited a book by the guru. It's called Song of the Soul, the Namokar mantra. And it was about the esoteric science in terms of spiritual science, what the different syllables signified and what colors were associated with which sounds, and what energy centers in the body the different sounds in the mantra affected. But there was a healing practice. On the way up I was living in the state of Vermont. It was like a 6-hour drive from the ashram. I stopped at the house of a woman who had been one of the disciples of this guru. And when I got there, she told me her adult daughter, this is an older woman, her adult daughter had suffered some severe burns all over the body. And she was, even with the medical treatment, she was in severe pain. I said, "Hey, could I meet her?" And I went up to her room, and, the mother introduced me, and she was just, she was covered, and she couldn't be touched because the skin was so sensitive. And, she was under the sheets and all. So I asked her if I could chant for her, and she was in pain. And I tuned into my intention of being of healing service, and I started doing the feeling in her energy field. I think I started from the Muladhara, the bottom, and going up toward the Sahasrara and above, and I would just feel, did the energy feel smooth and calm, or did it feel, jagged? Did it feel rough? And I would do these circular movements over the centers, not touching her physically. That would have been wrong. It would have aggravated her pain. And I was chanting the whole time. And the room energy started feeling more peaceful. I started feeling more peaceful. The energy field around her body started feeling smoother. She said, "My God, I'm not in pain anymore."
Oh, wow.
And this was
amazing.
And I had to keep traveling. I have no idea how long it lasted, but even a bit of relaxation and reprieve, and the chanting was a part of it. I know that I can't explain it other than that. Well, I can explain to some extent, but I think there's more to it. But so many frames of reference I'm going to right now, theoretically, but let's say she experienced it and I experienced it. There is the phenomenon of rhythm entrainment where, if people are really attuned to each other, that heads start nodding. There's a little dance that goes on in any communication. And furthermore, it affects the brain waves, it affects the heart rate, and people's hearts can get into sync, as happens especially in choral singing, which is known to be very healing and so on.
It's at this point that I asked Mitch if we could go back to his time in Africa. I stated that India is so well versed in the ancient sages of Ayurveda, whereas Africa had their own therapeutic practices with music passed down from their ancestors' healing practices. I questioned his thoughts on the prevalence, or lack thereof, for depression, because it seems as though everyone worked together using songs and music as a community to heal hardships as a community. And this is what he had to say.
Well, another piece of my background is that while I was living in Vermont, which is not a very diverse state, I started having dreams about African music and dance. And in the dreams, in one of the dreams, I was at a border crossing, and there was an African-looking woman who was the border guard. And she pointed to me and said, if I wanted to cross this border, she said, with your body, you need to dance. And this was at a time when there was, not, to my awareness, I was the farthest in the US away from things African. But all of a sudden, a teacher of African dance was going to give a workshop one weekend. He happened to have the same last name as me by coincidence, Hall. But so I thought, I had these dreams. I was told, in the dream, it was a beautiful dream, but a lot of dreams of beautiful African dance, which I had seen. And so I went to the workshop, and then some more teachers started showing up. And all of a sudden there was a teacher who had a studio in the capital city of Vermont, Montpelier, which wasn't far from where I lived. So I started going there once or twice a week. And then a guest teacher was coming down and so I got known in this community. And then they invited a guy from the Republic of Mali who would do a drumming workshop in the morning and a dance workshop in the afternoon. At that point, he didn't speak much English. It was French, so they knew about my background in Africa, so they asked if I would be his interpreter. I was actually, so I got very interested in him because during one of the lunch breaks, he said that in his village, the musicians were not just, none of them was a professional. They all, had their other work, but they were also the healers.
I actually just wanted to say, when you were talking about in Toga, with the community, with the workers in the field, and them creating music and creating these songs and singing along to kind of also, I guess, energize them and keep them in the moment. That's exactly, it's completely different, obviously, because I'm sat in my job at a laptop and it's very dry work. I'm not toiling under a boiling hot sun in primitive conditions. But when I feel the need to focus, I will put music on and I will listen to something that I know brings me back to that moment and that can help me focus. And it's not dissimilar to what the people would be doing out in the fields, creating their songs that energize them and create that rhythm to keep them in the push, pull, think, pull the fishing nets out. So it's a universal thing, although I'm a world away from that world. This music, and in terms of how it can integrate into your consciousness and into your life and sort of syncing with your own sort of bodily rhythms and your mental rhythms, is a universal thing.
Yeah, I agree. So I didn't quite answer Becky's question yet.
Oh, no, don't worry. I'm known for interrupting, Mitch. So.
We're in kind of call and response mode, and we're like a jazz trio. We're kind of ripping off of each other.
That's good. Riffing is good. We love a riff.
So first of all, Africa is vastly diverse. I think it's 3 times geographically the size of the continental United States. And did you know there's more genetic diversity among indigenous Africans living on the African continent than there is among all the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
And there's a principle of evolutionary biology that the closer one is to the origin of the species, of a given species that propagates and spreads and migrates, the more genetic diversity there will be. So that's one piece of evidence for, the African origins of Homo sapiens sapiens. Oh, I wish there were more of the wisdom in this species. We're tapping on it. So, but, and then there have been a lot of studies of different indigenous groups, and like the Kalahari Kung, I can't do the click sound of it, the so-called Bushmen, which is not their term for themselves. They have these healing dances where this, what Richard Katz, an anthropologist, called boiling energy comes up. And there is real healing, but there is a kind of social cohesion. People are not alone. So anyhow, the African musician from Mali, I proposed writing a book with him. So he told me it's really his story and his interpretation. I was simply the translator from French to English, and then who had to go through like sometimes eight or more edits on a chapter as the editors kept coming back to me with questions and queries and sentence structure, rearrangements. And I just, so I did the actual translation and then the writing in English, but it's his voice, his story, his energy that I did my best to transmit. But what he said was that, and also I saw it among the Fulanis I knew, the Africans I knew, the closest, people were not left alone with their problems. It was considered to be a community problem. And Yaya Diallo, the African musician, told me that in his village, if someone was starting to act weirdly, and they would pick it up, they would see it in the way they were dancing and the community dances, then they would do inquiries of, the family, the circle of friends, the people who were, in living close together and all. And sometimes there'd be a kind of communal living, communal healing. And he said, the community music and dance was the only time when even quote enemies would no longer be enemies, because they'd all be out there dancing together. So there was something about the way that music and dance brought the whole community together. And as I said, I would see old toothless people and moms or even teenagers with moms with the babies strapped on their backs with a cloth, all dancing together. And I could get out there and dance. It was all accepted, and people would act out fantasies. Old men would act out as if they're warriors, with hatchets, and then a boy would dress himself up in a woman's clothes or vice versa. People acted out their fantasies, and it was kind of a healthy expression, but it was just part of the dance. So I think, and the there's a lot of evidence that the drumming, and they have polyrhythms. It's very complex drumming. It gets everybody in sync. And the way this African musician, who I got to know because I translated his words into a book in English, that is, when he taught dance differently from everybody else, because all the other African dance teachers I had, they would teach you a certain pattern of movement, but he said in his village, the drummers would, so you move one way when it's, the djembe drum has three tones, bass, tone, and slap, it's called, from lower to higher. But when when you did a certain tone, you're supposed to move the body in a certain way, whether it's the foot or, a kind of hunching of the back or flinging of the arm. And so he would change the rhythm all of a sudden. And he said in his village, there was no time to learn the pattern because the drummers would play around, but the people were in sync and they would do it spontaneously.
And they would
they would just do it. And so I said, there's no time to think, oh, that was the slap. I'm supposed to reach my arm up like this, because it's already gone on to something else. So they had somehow gotten into a kind of shared field of consciousness where it was happening spontaneously. Kind of the way when you see, what was it called? Swarming of a big flock of birds together. Swarm.
Reverberation, yeah.
A murmuration, that's the beautiful, beautiful word. Thank you so much. A murmuration of swallows or whatever it is. Yeah. And so I realized, there's more to this. This is like in training a certain kind of consciousness that transcends the time lags that would otherwise be involved. And then I saw research written, two men, Congdon and Crome, I think they were at the University of Massachusetts. Don't quote me on that. This is before we had internet and smartphones, so-called smartphones, and all digital technology. They were making video recordings of newborn babies while the mother or the parents were around just talking, and then they slowed down the videos or the films rather, and looked frame by frame, and they found each infant was born with encoded in the entire body a response to the phonemes, the basic sound units of the native language. It was a bit idiosyncratic. It wasn't the same for every infant, but every infant was, according to Alfred Tomatis, a French otorhinolaryngologist, researcher in sound and healing and everything. He said that by the age of 4.5 months in utero, about halfway through gestation, the acoustic nerve is fully myelinated. And, the myelination of the nerves, that is, the coating of them with the fatty myelin sheath, increases nerve transmission by 100%. He claims it's the first nerve that's fully myelinated, and he had developed a whole therapy approach, postnatal, obviously, based on replicating the frequencies of sound that a gestating child is hearing, filtered through the mother's body fluids and so on. So that's a whole other story. But at any rate, according to Congdon and Crome's research, which is reported in a book I have called Born Dancing, and which cites a lot of different research, we've already been listening to the native language filtered through the body fluids since, at least 4.5 months, if not before. And we come out, and originally we're dancing. I mean, it's micro movements. It's really small. It's subtle. And then eventually, that gets all concentrated through the ears and the vocal apparatus and so on. So sound, we're attuned to it very much. And supposedly musical memory uses the most extensive neuronal networks in the brain of any kind of memory. And I don't know if you ever saw a documentary movie called Alive Inside. I'm just free associating right now. But a social worker, I forget his name right now. It's in my notes.
Yes.
But
I know what you're talking about.
He wondered the iPod, the little sound devices were so inexpensive compared with pharmaceuticals and all. What would happen if he gave each of these patients in memory care units, who had various forms of dementia, Alzheimer's, and so on? If he gave them music to listen to, they started coming alive. They started dancing. Some started speaking after being without language for years. The music brought them alive. And so then he had this idea. This is so inexpensive. We could revolutionize memory care. We could regenerate, bring people back to their memory and their loved ones and everything. Well, music, it's so profound, and these cultures have tapped into profound wisdom. And African, the polyphonic nature of the drumming is very complex. It's not simple, and the harmonics. Like I remember when I was very young, I came across a friend at a college had a recording of the singing of the Mbuti, the so-called pygmies in the Ituri rainforest. The anthropologist Colin Turnbull had done some of the recordings. Oh my God, their singing was so harmonious and complex and multi-parted and everything. And then I remember in one of his books, I think The Forest People, Colin Turnbull talked about, he saw one of his, a friend of his among the Mbuti out at middle of the night under a full moon night dancing. And he said, why are you out dancing alone at night? And the guy looked at him, Kenge was his name. He said, what do you mean alone? I'm dancing with the moon. I'm dancing with the lake. I'm dancing with the trees. Anyhow, the integration into a community, a supportive community, and into a natural environment has been part of the human legacy that has been lost to so many of us in the modern, industrialized, in weird civilizations. You know that term, weird, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democracies. I mean,
I next prompted Mitch with this next statement. Mitch, I think it was in one of your lessons I attended where you spoke about how the body is made up of mostly water in which vibrations of sound flow through. Let's talk about your thoughts on how the vibrations of sound plays as a major component for how music heals the body, mind, and soul.
It is, and it's more. So are you familiar with the research of Hans, I don't know how you pronounce, Jenny, is it Jenny? A Swiss scientist, may have been an anthroposophist, don't quote me on that, but he developed the research called cymatics, C-Y-M-A-T-I-C-S, and I think that's how you pronounce it, unless it's kymatics, I don't know. But anyhow, he started doing research where he would generate different tones, frequencies, and he would have like particulate matter on an iron plate, and the frequencies would vibrate the plate, and then he did this also in gelatinous and liquid, and then even gaseous medium. And depending on the tone, it would create these mandala-like structures. The particles would spontaneously arrange in these mandala-like structures. You can see videos of it on online, and there's I think he's a British researcher, John Stuart Reid, who is also a researcher into sound healing, and he created something called a cymoscope that, it's just building on Hans Jenny's work. But anyhow, sound and these mandalas, they're beautiful, and so sound vibrations, depending upon the frequency, the harmonics, the emotional intent, if people were generating it, even that's all communicated very subtly, does create order out of it creates higher levels of order and patterned levels of order. I think that's a bit of evidence for that. But definitely, Masaru Emoto is that Japanese researcher who started exposing water to different words that people would speak, music, and so on. And then it was frozen, and then when we sliced it open, there were patterns, and hostile negative words spoken with a hostile voice would actually create chaotic, ugly looking structures. And good, sincerely, the Secret Messages of Water, there are book titles like that, Masaru Emoto. Beautiful, 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 like again, mandala like structures, and and certain kinds of music would. So all life is, all the universe is responsive to sound, to music. Plants are. There was a researcher, Dorothy Redelack, at a university in the US, who started doing experiments. She created these chambers where she would have, she could expose growing plants to different kinds of music. And depending on the kind of music and the quality of it, some of the plants would grow towards the source of the sound, some would go away from it, some got killed by it, but it definitely affected the growth rate, the density of the root networks, and all the rest. This is reported on in a book called The Secret Life of Plants. There's a chapter called The Harmonics of Plants that goes into all that. So we respond to music, we respond to sound. Plants do, other animals do. I read in one of these books, it may have been The Secrets of the Soil, the successor to The Secret Life of Plants, that the particular frequencies of sounds, the particular frequencies in morning bird song, you know how the birds start singing in the early morning, the stomata on the leaves of the trees and the plants start opening more to receive in the dew, that's formed in the night on the leaf surfaces. So that it's like the birds are not waking themselves up, they're waking up the plants themselves, that the daylight is coming. This is, dawn. And let's all absorb the beautiful healing energies. Yeah. So there's this beautiful, dance of life and symphony of life going on all the time. And of course, what do humans heal between like 16 or 19 hertz up to 20,000 or something? But there's this vast sound, like whales make sounds we can't hear with our human ears, and there are frequencies of sound that some birds we can't hear that, so there's sound beyond, but we have a pretty good range, and we really can feel it. There was the late Dr. John Diamond. He was a psychiatrist originally from Australia who settled in the U.S. on the East Coast, and he was doing research involving applied kinesiology. He called it behavioral kinesiology, where if he had experimental subjects tell lies, and he didn't know when they were lying, and he would just test, the deltoid muscle response. People's muscles would get inhibited if they were healing lies, even if consciously they didn't know someone was lying. And so you can feel, but we often are so focused in the sort of the literal linguistic content of words, we forget it's really the prosodic qualities of the voice. That is the musicality of the voice, which is more right hemisphere mediated, whereas the lie or the truth, but it's factual information, is more left hemisphere mediated. And the two are working together, both hemispheres together. But it's the prosody of the voice where we feel safe, or we feel uneasy, we feel scared, we feel intimidated, we feel enthusiastic. It's like we're inviting with our voice. And John Diamond had in one of his monographs he wrote, he just said the purpose of our voices is to be healing one another. And so he recommended that people recite poetry with meter, poetry with imagery, poetry with the music of the voice, of the language itself, because that engages the full, left and right hemisphere together, as well as, the whole body rhythms and everything.
Total bilateral work.
Exactly. And of course, as we know, before there was writing, some of the, supposedly the Iliad and the Odyssey and, these epic poems were recited by memory by the bards of the people, but they were in poetic meter. They were in verse, which facilitates our remembering it. It engages more of the bilateral, both hemispheres of the brain, and as well as, we can feel it in our bodies more. So, the fluids are affected, everything's affected. And of course, cardiac coherence, when the brain rhythms and the heart rhythms are all synchronized and regular, we're healthier and we're more responsive. We can be more empathic and so on.
We had reached the top of the hour with very little time left. However, Izzy and I had to tie in Mitch's life while living in France. Therefore, we questioned Mitch on a song or a band that he listened to most during that time period.
Oh mon Dieu, je sais pas, ça fait longtemps. It's been such a long time. Well, I mean, I actually, when in 1970, when I went to Europe with the International Fellowship of Reconciliation to do some peace and environmental organizing work in a few countries where, I was first based in Brussels, Belgium, and then in Paris, I had a little teeny tiny cassette recorder with me. And I was actually listening to the Edwin Hawkins singers singing, "Oh, happy day, oh, happy day." It was African-American, gospel or scripture. And that really kept me going. And then I slowly started learning, from about Jacques Brel or Charles Aznavour or, these amazing singers. So it's hard to know because I was part of an international sort of network when I was in Paris, Vietnamese refugees from the war in Vietnam and Buddhists and, all kinds of people. Yeah. So I don't know but Oh Happy Day, that for some reason that one was, that really spoke to my body, my soul, to all of me. And I really, it kind of gave me energy for the kind of work I was doing. So I don't know if you've heard that particular version of it, but it's so rollicking and soul rousing. Yeah.
Mitch, thank you. It's been so wonderful to talk to you. I appreciate it. I could literally sit here and listen to your stories for another hour or two. And
we have to have them back
and ask you about sounds and music. And I even really wanted to start talking about how, the earth at its core makes a rhythm and music, and how that must somehow have, with the origins of evolution of life and stuff like that. But we don't have time for that because I have to go to work tomorrow at 8 a.m. So
we have to have them back for sure.
I would love to invite you back at some point if you'd be happy, and we can talk about some more specific things. We've got Mitch muted at the moment, just so you know, everyone. He's put 2 double thumbs up because there is we had a technical issue at the start and there is an echo. So again, I'd just like to thank Mitch Hall for his time. Please go and check out his website, Breathe Peacefully. It speaks about all the wonderful work he's done. And Mitch, if you'd like to unmute yourself and say goodbye, we can say au revoir.
Au revoir, merci énormément, c'était un grand plaisir.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, Izzy.
I did just see you 5 minutes ago.
It's true.
And
For
then we went
hour and a
off
half.
to get our giant goblets of wine. Sun is very much after the yard arm. Down after the yard arm. Is that the saying? Oh,
I've never heard it before.
Sun,
What does it mean?
sun is behind the yard arm. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. We've just done a really interesting interview with a chap, and I will do an intro to the podcast anyway, the episode. So I won't do too many spoilers. But we've just done a really interesting, fascinating, in fact, interview with a chap out in California called Mitch Hall. Dr. Mitch Hall, I guess, right? Because I feel quite rude now because I didn't address him as a doctor. And you know how I love to say doctor? Doctor.
Dottore.
Who is too many things to mention about him, but he's very, very well educated and versed and wise about music and its powers of healing. And there was so much that he was saying, and I kept wanting, in my typical neurodiverse way, to go, yeah, but this, and I was like literally biting my tongue because Mitch was in full flow. I wanted him to be able to just talk and be organic about what he was saying, and it was fantastic. So that was great. It was a good job I didn't interrupt. There was so much that he said, and I was thinking about it, and I think we're going to get him back on, aren't we? Hopefully.
Yeah, we have to, because he has to talk about his anecdote about the tree, and you have to pick his brain about the core.
So much, like the core of the earth. Mm-hmm. People are going to be listening to this going, what the fuck, the core of the earth? I thought this was just about music, songs that we like and have helped. Like, why are you getting into, I don't know.
Dude, okay, so I could talk about some spoilers of what we just talked about because this isn't going on until the end. So okay. I am so thrilled that he brought up the music of the birds with the plants, because I for like the longest time I wanted to incorporate it somewhere. And so he did it already. And I'm fascinated with the fact that he actually brought up that documentary that I had watched years ago about the whole like Alzheimer's and music. And he is so amazing. He's just.
We'll link. I mean, he's written books. So I'm going to link as much stuff as is relevant to this podcast, including his website, in the show notes. And when he was talking about the plants, though, I really wanted to make a joke because he was I don't want to spoil it too much, but he was talking about experiments done with plants and how they respond to certain types of music and certain sounds, certain keys, and how they might, and he said some plants even die. And I was thinking, fuck, is that why my cheese plants have never thrived?
Okay.
Because I've been playing like Pierce the Veil or something in their direction. And they're just like shriveling into themselves.
He's going to listen to this and he's going to be like, I can't believe she remembered that. But during one of the courses that I took with him when he came in and was a guest speaker with Ananta's group, he actually talked about how you could hear vegetation, it was something about the tomatoes cracking, like the fact that they were not watered, but that they left some kind of vibration to let you know, and only the birds could hear it. It's so fascinating. The guy is
fascinating.
Just amazing.
And I was thinking about, he made a really good point about how we're so disconnected in the Western world from these kind of communities that use music as a collaboration, a community focal point, like in Africa and places like that, and how like the nearest thing we have to it, I suppose, is going to gigs when it's tribal, when you go to a band that you love and their music that you love, and you're all dancing in time and you're all looking at each other and smiling and you all get it, and that's kind of the nearest thing that we have to it, that kind of experience. And I kind of really wanted to start asking questions about what is that doing to us inside. He did touch on it a little bit, because yes, the music's great and it's uplifting, but also it's, like Mitch said, it's also rewiring things in our brain. Right. And that to me is just insane and fascinating.
Going back to 2020 when everything was shut down, and how like bands were doing like, shows on, virtual shows, like on platforms or whatever. But it was the energy that you're missing from being a part of those venues inside with all those people enjoying all the music. And it's just this energy and vibe that you share. And it just, while it's great that they use the music, it doesn't replace the vibrations, the energy, all of that.
Yeah, and I can't. We will have him back, because I have definitely got some more specific questions to ask off the back of that, including why my cheese plant might die when I play emo music in the same room. Anyway,
that was one of my questions.
I have a really thriving cheese plant now, because he's in a room where emo doesn't get played. He's actually behind me. Look, can you see?
Oh, does it listen to K-pop? What does it listen to?
Whatever's on the. What was it listening to earlier? It was actually listening to. He's called Oscar, because of course I named my plants. So he was listening to. What was I playing just before we started the interview with Mitch? I was trying to listen, talking about music and how it helps with anxiety and things like that. I was listening to some stuff to bring me down, and I was listening to spoken word music, which Mitch did talk about poetry and rhythm, which again, I don't want to spoil, but the songs that I've picked that have got me through March as well there's one in particular that's spoken word, and I was thinking about how it fits right in with these pieces of music, and I'm going off on a fucking tangent again.
Izzy, you can spoil it because this goes on after him.
Oh yeah. I'm so tired.
No, it's really late there. I'm sorry.
I'm like normally in bed, like I'd be in my pajamas now, looking at my nice cheese plant, cuddling up with my cat. So no, it's fine. It was worth it. It's totally worth it, because that guy, I told you when we logged up, before we logged up the call, I could have listened to him all night. But I do have to get up and go to work at 8 a.m. I can't remember what I was saying now. Yeah, so spoken word. Those are actually, like, there's a track that I've been listening to. Should I just talk about my track now, seeing as I'm talking about it? I might as well, I guess. So there's, you know me, I hate bus commutes. I quite often message you from the bus at the end of the day, and bus and everything, you know, cranky times 1000. I don't like the public transport commute, and it's not because I'm a snob, it's just because I am quite sensory orientated, and there's often smells and sounds, and sometimes for some reason on my bus route, people who vape on their e-cigarettes on the bus, which is not supposed to happen, and I can get very anxious to the point where I want to actually get off the bus, but then it's going to take me. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have had words with teenagers, not to sound like a very middle-aged right-wing woman, but I have had words with teenagers. It's like, don't vape right next to me, please, on the bus. You know, sometimes I want to get off the bus, but I live quite far away from work. It would take me ages to get home, so I try and eke it out. So music is the main thing that really gets me through. You know, it's where I probably do most of my music listening, because it's quite a long commute. And there's these certain spoken word tracks, but this one in particular. Now, this is a Brian Ferry track, you know, of Roxy Music. It's his first album in well over a decade, and it's coming out, and it's a collaboration with, what is her name? Oh, she's called Amelia Barrett, I think. That's my grandmother's name, so that's why I remember it, Amelia. She's a visual artist, and he's created the ambient incidental soundtrack, and she's spoken wording. That's not even a phrase, but I have just had 3 sips of red wine in quite quick succession. So she's doing the spoken wording over the top of the music. And there's this one that's come out. I think it's the first sort of release from the album. I don't think the album's been released fully yet, called Florist. And it's so beautiful. She's got, I don't know how to explain it. It will be on the collaborative playlist. Her voice is so soothing. It's actually not very expressive. It's actually kind of like on one level, but her voice is so soothing. And I remember thinking, and this is what links back to what my plant would normally be listening to and was listening to earlier, is there is a series of compilation albums called Late Night Tales, produced by, I can't remember the record label now. Anyway, it's an artist curated piece of work. So artists pick mostly mellow, mostly ambient tracks. People like Metronome, Arctic Monkeys, Nils Fram, the Danish electronica artist, John Hopkins, Floating Points, which I was listening to on vinyl the other day, have all done curated Late Night Tales albums, and every single one ends with a spoken word track. The John Hopkins one ends with, you'll love this, Mr. Cillian Murphy reciting a short piece of writing by Enda Walsh, the Irish playwright with who he's very close, called In the Morning, over this beautiful piece of music that John Hopkins has composed. There's one David Holmes did, who's a big electronica / composer, soundtrack composer. Stephen Ray, the Irish actor, narrates a excerpt from a Virgil piece of writing called Elsewhere. It's called Elsewhere Anchises, and he narrates that over a David Holmes ambient track. And every single one ends with a spoken word to finish the compilation. And it's all mixed, so it's kind of one long mix. And that's what my cheese plant was listening to earlier with me, Elsewhere Anchises.
It sounds...
It's beautiful.
Glorious.
Properly, I'll put it... Do you know what? It wasn't originally on my pick for musics that have got me through March. Florist by Brian Ferry and Amelia Barrett have. But I'm going to put Elsewhere Anchises on there as well, because you know how nervous I felt about this particular episode and the recording of it. Not least of all because bless Mitch, he'd bought new technology and I was really worried that something was going to go wrong. And he's like, you're in the Eastern US, he's in Western US, I'm over here in Yorkshire and I can't really do anything about it. This is a very unprofessional operation. We don't have any tech support.
I think it's organic. I think that's the way it should be. I don't want it polished and weird.
I couldn't do polished. It would feel fake and I wouldn't like it. But Elsewhere on Kaisers, that particular spoken word track really did bring me down from like the parapet of anxiety that I was like on in the run up to the meeting with Mitch. And another spoken word track that I've been listening to a lot on the bus. It's pretty fierce. It's pretty angry music, which probably reflects my state of mind most of the time when I'm on the bus, to be honest. It's a recent Lord Huron track, and it's a collab with Kristen Stewart. You know, Kristen Stewart of, you know, Twilight. Bella. Bella. See, I got my Arrow impression in after all. Yeah, this track called Who Laughs Last is so David Lynchian. The video is Lynchian. The track is Lynchian. Kristen Stewart, the spoken word bit of it that she does is just, I've got the word hypnotic.
I think you're going to have to send that to me. Just saying. Yeah.
Do you not follow me on social media? Because I post it. You're rude. I posted it all over social media. I know you do. I'm joking. Yeah, I'll send you the link. Well, it will go on the collaborative playlist. So mostly I'm about the spoken word tracks that have been marched. So
how did I miss it? Maybe you did. Did you post it as like to click on it from Spotify?
No, I think I posted it on Threads because it was quite soon after. I tell you why. I know when I posted it without even looking at my Threads, and I don't post on Threads that much because I don't really understand it.
I don't go on Threads.
It's supposed to be like this. I don't even understand. Everyone's going, oh, Threads, it's so good. Come over here, quit X, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's just full of bots. Yeah, they might not be uber right-wing bots right now, but it will go that way.
Sexual bots.
Yeah, they're mostly sexual bots. And men who can't possibly that good looking asking for a girlfriend. So mostly anyway, I posted it on Threads and it was not long after David Lynch had passed because I listened to it and I watched the video. I was like, this is so Lynchian, and I'd gone through a sort of period of posting memories of Lynch films, Twin Peaks, etc. And I was like, there was a big community on Threads. So that was the best time I ever had on Threads, which is unfortunate given it's about someone's passing who I really loved, but there was a big community of us like keeping the Lynch kind of vibe alive. And I posted it then because the video and the track itself, it could have been from a Lynch film.
Okay, I have a confession. When it comes to social media, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. When it comes to social media, especially like Threads, I wait until Instagram gives me like a little heart thing that I need to go there and look at something, whatever it is that it feels I need to look at. But when I see something from like you or somebody that I know and like, I just click like because I want the algorithms to like kick up for other people, like, you know, for them to see your content. So I don't always have that minute to really look at everything.
Oh my God, I can't write. Did you not see that? I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But in all fairness, I don't have anything about Moomins this time round. So this can be the replacement for Moomins because it's similarly nonsensical. Did you not see from when I was out on last Thursday night, the legendary tweets that I was doing from the pub? And I'll recite it to you, shall I?
Yes.
I'm in the pub. This is what I put on Threads. I'm in the pub on a Thursday night, and I think you like this, but
I think I did read this. I recall this.
Reading it, right? I'm in the pub on a Thursday night, and these are some of the things I've already strongly declared in caps. You cannot dictate to me when or where I do my Count Von Count impression.
I read this. It was, and I was super happy and proud that you actually used, you know, the Count from Sesame Street because I love him.
I've got a little Count Von Count, a little fabric Count Von Count who sits on the small sofa downstairs. It's his sofa.
It's like 1, 2, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Anyway, that wasn't the best impression I've ever done of him, but I need to prep. I really need to I have to get into the mindset of the Count to do Count Von Count. But everyone's going to be listening to this going, God, she's got a cheese plant called Oscar. She's got a tiny count on couch sitting downstairs. I'm like, no wonder she had a breakdown. Her brain's insane.
Or you absolutely love Sesame Street?
No.
I do.
That was a bit Oscar the Grouch. I don't like the big yellow bird. It freaks me out. I like Cookie Monster. I like Oscar the Grouch because obviously I am Oscar the Grouch. I know I sound so jolly on this podcast, but I'm not. I'm miserable, guys. And the Count, legend. That's why he sits on my sofa downstairs. I'll put him on the Instagram, shall I? There you go. I've got some content.
I totally think you should. I would not be against it at all. Just bring back some of my youth.
I'll send you a small Count Von Count via FedEx. There you go. Look forward to that. I still haven't sent you the thing that I was going to send at Christmas. I'm so bad.
We also, from the very first episode, we did not talk about the Duran Duran song that turned Grandpa around.
Oh yeah, after he thought they were like grubby little men.
Yeah.
Well, I did do my little versus Gemini AI, Google AI things. I did mention it on there. But the song that actually turned Grandpa around was A View to a Kill, the Bond theme. And I was like super into it. I was like, I didn't really watch James Bond. I don't think that my grandparents' house was a James Bond house. I don't really know why. There was nothing ever explicit. We just didn't watch Bond films.
Me neither.
What did we watch? We watched, giving away my age. Well, I don't have to say how old I was quite young. Obviously, I've talked about how my grandfather let me watch The Deer Hunter when I was 9, which was insane. Hill Street Blues, St. Elsewhere. We watched a lot of American TV. I loved Hill Street Blues. I'm not sure I really understood it. I was quite young, but it was just the ritual of sitting down with my grandparents to watch Hill Street Blues.
Even those though, they're
that theme tune, doon doon doon, doon doon doon. I remember it now. I apologize for that. Guys.
Even those are pretty well known. I mean, as a kid, I watched a lot of cult movies like Flight of the Navigator and any kind of John Cusack movie, like one. The
one where he's outside the window.
No, I mean, yeah, but there's another one with Bobcat Goldthwait. It's
I'm the film student.
One Crazy Summer.
One Crazy Summer.
I love that one. And if you get me happy enough, I'll do Bobcat impressions. So
well, I've already done Arrow from Twilight. Yeah, I don't count Count. No. You owe us an impression now.
Not on here.
Can you not do your Bernie Sanders impression?
So
it's going to be at the rate I am not earning money from side hustles. It's going to be so long before I can come out to America.
Actually, I ate soup on Friday, and the whole time I'm like, soup.
I love it. That's so good.
Okay,
right, talk to me about your songs. Is one of them French? Because you know that there are people playing podcast bingo and they're just waiting to cross off that French. Becky mentions French songs box.
Becky mentions French.
You've got to give it to them. There's no Moomins this month.
I made a point to add one to the list. But basically I've been listening to a lot of shoegaze. I'm like back with the whole like Rex from View. He has a band called Bella Vista, and there's this one, it's called Sideway Kinks. Yes. Oh, I love that song. Yeah. Can listen to that one on repeat. My neurodivergent brain is like, yes. There's this other musician called Tamarin. And I think that she may have worked with either Rex or maybe Anton Newcomb. I don't really know. Don't quote me on that. But there's this one song called The Waves on her album, and it's really good. Okay, let's go with French, right? Because we have to.
Come on.
And I know I've mentioned this band before, so we'll mention them again because
play. Listen to Le Chat. Le Chat is on my shoulder again.
Oh, there
Oh,
he
what
is.
is he doing? He's being a nightmare, Beetlejuice.
He's
What's
like,
the matter with you?
he's like, it's past my bedtime, yo.
Yeah, you know what? That is exactly what he's doing, because I've told you, have I not told you how when I go to, oh, this is so sad.
He's like, get in that bed.
I'm trying to portray myself as cool and useful, and all I'm saying is past my bedtime. I name my plants. My best friend is Count Von Count, a fabric version who lives on my sofa downstairs, and you know the cat. I'm such a creature of habit that the cat knows when I'm going upstairs to bed, and I'll say, "Come on, bedtime," and he'll like just cuddle up beside me on the bed. So he's like, he's clearly now, what the fuck are you doing?
It's like, get in this bed.
It's dark for 2 hours. Why are you not in that bed?
Okay, really quick, French band.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned them before. They're called Social Dance. Social Dance.
Oh, you did, yeah.
And they have like so many good songs. One is Parler.
Parler.
The other one is, I don't remember. I have it written down though. C'est plus clair. So there's, but Parler, I mean, that's a good one. It's like, ooh. Anyways, go listen to it. It's a good one.
I listened to the whole, we were talking actually in the last one about Dopamine. Yeah. I've listened to their whole album. It's so good.
Yes, it is.
I'm not going to put all the tracks on the collaborative playlist, but please, if you, it's just happy music. It's so good. It's so cool, funky, happy music. Go listen to Dopamine, the album. Phil, while I find out the title, Becky, please.
Well, I'm just going to say this. You mentioned about Emily in Paris. I'm so offended. I love that show. Absolutely.
Right. It's right. The album of Dopamine, before I get into my critique of Emily in Paris, the Dopamine's album is called Dopa Love with a plus sign at the end of it. And can you see the artwork? Oh, there's the camera. Is it even on it?
Blurred. Very blurred, but it's okay.
Yeah, never mind. It's very neon, and it's like what I was talking about in the last
happy
episode.
pop art.
Happy electronic pop. It's really, really good. Emily in Paris. Shall we go there? I do not want to get sued by Netflix.
No, don't go there. We could just say agree to disagree.
I don't get it. And if someone could, it's like, I'm sorry, I am going to go there. It's like,
before you go there, let me just say this.
There's things that I don't get in this world. Sabrina Carpenter is one of them. And I'm pretty open-minded, right? I'm pretty open-minded. I can and even if I don't like it, it doesn't connect with me. I can understand its appeal. I can understand the production behind it, the technical work, whatever, right? The artistry. But there are two things at the moment that have, in recent times, pissed me off because I just don't get it at all. One is Sabrina Carpenter. The other is Emily in Paris.
Okay.
Sue me. I have no money.
Okay, listen. I can debunk these just with two things.
No, you can't debunk Sabrina Carpenter. My eldest child made me listen to 4 songs today, and I was still like, nope.
Listen, I can. Just give me a minute, okay?
I'm waiting.
It is full of really great music. Really great music.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, with the music, they totally played a Tahiti 80 song. Sorry.
Sorry. May I go on record in saying that I always preferred Phoenix, and I don't care. Give me Thomas Mars any day. Sorry.
But it is. I will send you a few songs that I captured from there. That I go on there just to listen to the music.
Well, I don't have to watch it because someone will have compiled a playlist on the streaming app, so I don't have to watch it. I will say I've not just took a hatred against it for no reason. I did sit and watch it with a member of my family who likes it, and I really tried to engage with it, but I just, as someone who's spent a lot of time in Paris,
Can I ask a question?
I couldn't. I just, it's offensive.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go on.
You can't mock me after I've asked this.
Why would I mock you, darling? I support you in all your things.
Who is Sabrina Carpenter?
Think yourself lucky that you haven't heard her. There you go. Have you not heard that song? Espresso?
Mm-mm.
No. You must have.
I'm looking it up now.
Look it up. Don't play it. Don't play it.
Okay, I won't
Because
play
you'll
it.
get sued. Sabrina Carpenter will sue.
Who is she though? Like, is she?
She's like I think she's like a Disney kid.
Oh, Jesus.
You know,
I'm sorry.
You know Olivia Rodrigo, right?
No, you gave that name earlier, and I was like, who is that?
Oh, I can't. I'm gonna swear again. I can't believe you don't know Olivia Rodrigo.
I'm telling you, anything that is like commercial, I banish it from my soul.
Well, Olivia Rodrigo is great. Yes, she is pop, but she is. You've never heard Driver's License. That song was huge. That song was big everywhere.
What year?
But she's American. So I'm getting very hysterical now, guys.
Dude, that's like referencing a Taylor Swift song that I wouldn't know.
Right, wait. Let's just retrace our steps a little bit. Becky's laughing a lot here. I think she's pressing it, but she's breaking down in hysterics. Which of your teenage children is nearest to you at this time?
Neither of them. They're upstairs because I was like, you know I'm recording.
To ask either E or Z.
Okay, let me.
If they know Olivia Rodrigo.
Okay, let me find the family chat.
Have been played in your household.
Okay, what was the name?
Olivia Rodrigo. The type Driver's License, they will know. She's huge. She's huge. And Sabrina.
I don't care. Elle listens to like some kind of thug music a lot. It's like gangster music. I don't know what it is. It's
hip hop.
She is. I can't read. I can't say it.
What? Has she been reading about Olivia Rodrigo?
I don't know what it means. It's. She is ass at signing.
Do I have to?
You may have to edit that.
Urban Dictionary.
What does that mean?
She can't. Please, we can't. Don't talk in acronyms and tech speak. Just give us a straight answer.
Can we just speak in mom terms here?
Speak in normal human terms.
Sings. Okay, so I guess she's cool.
Yeah. There you go.
Good.
Does sings means cool, or is it she just literally?
Fire?
Is she just literally? Is Elle just literally saying yes? She sings. She is a singer.
Oh, okay. Apparently Elle does not like her.
Right. That's fine.
That means Zia does. That means Zia does.
Right. So she's great. Olivia Rodrigo is great. She has an amazing voice. She's a fantastic musician. She's a fantastic lyricist. Sabrina Carpenter is kind of like her nemesis. I'm not going to go into the whole backstory. This is not a pop culture podcast. There was a huge thing about something to do with Olivia's boyfriend and Sabrina Carpenter stealing him or something, but now he likes boys anyway, and I don't care about any of that. But all I know is Olivia Rodrigo makes music with soul, and Sabrina Carpenter makes music that you hear in supermarkets that you go, that is so fucking annoying. What is that? And don't come at me in the comments. If you're listening to us and you know anything about our taste, why the hell are you even listening to this if you're a Sabrina Carpenter fan?
That's true.
So there you go. So yeah, it's that was a huge digression, and now I've given myself a headache. And we know that Mitch is going to listen to this, and I'm really worried about what he will make of this end.
I'm pretty sure you're going to have to edit this. Please. Please.
We can just say, Mitch, please feel free to turn off such a
Mitch,
minute.
This is where we would like you to stop playing this podcast.
Yeah. I don't want him to be offended that he's associated with this nonsense at the end. So
Okay, but one last thing.
Go on, one last thing.
I am so happy that he indulged us in the French topic.
Ooh.
I'm just saying.
He mentioned Charles Aznavour, and there was a song, and I wish I had my notebook, because in the first episode, the first one we did in January, I talk about a song, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Nina Simone, that's it.
That's right.
You've got to learn. And that originally was a Charles Aznavour. Everything comes full circle.
Isn't it strange?
Also,
so
it
strange.
feels like France is we were talking about the origins of life in Africa earlier, but it really feels like that for us. It's
well, how strange is it? He's living in Africa and dealing with African community, but he's translating their language of French into English. So woo-woo.
What a life.
Yeah, he's just amazing. When I say so woo-woo, I mean like serendipitous in my own life, not for him.
Yeah, no, I can like how it's weird how it fits into your obsession with France. I mean, I'm slightly obsessed with France as well, because I like Paris, and I like the Eiffel Tower, and I like croissants, so it's all good. And Thomas Mars, just not T80.
I may have to look that up.
Thomas Mars? He's the lead singer of Phoenix. I'm going to end this podcast in anger now. I cannot believe it. I'm going to report you to France. So we will be back in, what's the next month, Becky? May. We will be back in May. I will be speaking to, and hopefully, unless anything goes awry, a lovely chap called Robin Allender. He is a multi-instrumentalist. He does stand-up comedy. He writes. He's got an interesting Substack. He does so much stuff, and he's such an interesting guy and knowledgeable about music and a fan of music more than anything else. I mean, he's always going to gigs, and I want his lifestyle. But I will be talking with Robin about songs that have helped, healed, etc., etc. And until we speak to you next time, I guess we will bid you adieu.